Please.
Hi, everyone, and welcome. We're going to give a few moments for people to come in today. And also, if you are watching this on a replay, just kind of scrub to the part where we start because I always give a couple minutes for people to get the notification and remember that we're on. And when I see zero, I get really nervous, and then people always come. It's the weirdest thing. It's the social media
Delay.
yeah. Anyway, I think we can get started. I want to wait for a couple, maybe like another few seconds, because now we have one person and we have several over on TikTok now. And I want to see if I can make this a little bigger for my TikTok people. Oh, that was good. I'll do that. Going back. And let me make my screen a little bigger. Okay, so today I am so excited because I have a new friend on. And when I found her, I freaked out. We were in an online community about teaching together, and she was telling me how she's rethinking writing to be more relevant. And this doesn't have to be in an English classroom. We're going to kind of talk a little bit about English because we're both English teachers by trade, but it could be in social studies or science or any classroom, art, especially art, actually, I think, and it's about making writing more relevant. And so, Jill, do you want to kind of introduce yourself and talk about this journey that you were telling me about that I freaked out about? And I even talking before this Facebook Live, I was like, I love this.
Absolutely. Well, first of all, Holly, thank you so much for having me on here today. And hello to everybody who's watching live or catching the replay. My name is Jill Pavich, and I am an English language arts teacher by trade. I am 16 years an educator now, 12 years of that in the high school classroom, largely working with ninth graders, my sweethearts. And so for many years, I was working on curriculums that were very standardized driven, if you will. There was an AP course I taught where there's an exam at the end of the year and through course projects. And then there was another course similar to that offered through Cambridge International. And so it was always this slog to get to that exam season and that, quote unquote, rigor of teaching the foundations of writing to get them to write these really solid academic essays. And literally I woke up one morning and was like, there's got to be a better way. And that's when I began my segue out of the classroom for a while to start working on that curriculum or on that path, really. And it was, I had fallen into what I call the content trap. I feel like a lot of teachers are in this. It's just like where we're constantly trying to pour content in to our students that we forget to step back and look at what's already there. And, for writing, it's like, it's not just the academic essay that they need to be learning about. And so I wanted to find a way where I wasn't white knuckling this essay with my kids. My kids loved me. They would do whatever they needed to for me. But, it was not like this fun, exciting thing for them to write an essay. So I'm sure you guys can relate.
Jill, like we do all these essays and then the kids write them in college and never write one again.
Right.
Like, unless maybe they go into law or something, but it's very rare that they write this essay again. Mm-hmm. And we get them ready for that. For what?
There's this point of pride where you get that email from your college kids that are like, thank you so much for teaching me writing because it's helping me now. But then I started to realize that all of my students' writing skills were going to die on the collegiate battlefield.
Yeah.
Because what next? And I had a conversation with one of my former students, a millennial, and she's like, running her own business, doing her own thing. And she's like, I'm trying to hire these younger kids and they don't even know what a social media scheduler is. They don't know how to write micro content. And I'm like, oh, wow. And so it just really started to shift my mindset for what do today's learners, but tomorrow's leaders really need when it comes to writing instruction.
And so what did that take you down? This is the part I love.
Yes. Well, I started dabbling in all the different mediums because there's that difference, right, between form and medium. Like, I think a lot of the times we get lost in the trees as teachers teaching to an exam or whatever it is, and we forget that, Common Core isn't a curriculum. It can tell us what form to teach. So argument, informative, essay, whatever. It can't tell us the medium to teach those skills through. So I was like, the traditional essay is just one medium, and there are so many more. We live in this multi-literate society where we've got information coming at us from all different directions through all different mediums. simultaneously in real time, right? And so I started to look at all those different mediums, and I, started dabbling in student created blogs and student created podcasts and videos. And then I started looking at short form content, which is where I'm at right now. And I'm just going to town with finding ways to work with students and real deal social media. I know it sounds scary when I say that, but to understand micro content, short form content, not just long form. So
you mean like maybe even possibly what it would be like to do a good Instagram post?
yes. Yeah. Yeah. Go ahead.
So important. And because we forget that we're not teaching kids to be historians or Nobel laureates. We're teaching them to get a job. That's the background of everything we're doing. And when they get a job, social media will be extraordinarily important to getting clients to their business and to understand what it is. Yes, you can hire it out, but you still need to understand whether or not the person's doing it well.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's this entire communication ecosystem online that I don't think most adults really understand. But it's like that's the business that our students are going to step into, whether they're working for someone else or they're forging it ahead and creating their own business. But when you write a blog post, or let's say you start a podcast, or you're in charge of writing blog posts for a business or something, those could be wonderful pieces of long form content, but how do you get people's eyes on that unless you're using other things like email and being able to feature those things on social media and make them exciting? And so, it's all this intricate ecosystem of digital mediums that our students need to understand how they intertwine and how that works to promote a message and leverage a voice.
So we had someone say, one of my favorite teachers of all time, Dalton, he says, I love this. Teaching skills our students will need beyond the classroom years. This can happen in any classroom. And Dalton is a math teacher. I think math maybe and science, but for sure math. And just forgetting because it's early here in the morning, Dalton, forgive me. But I just wanted to put that on there so you could see that. But keep going. I want to hear more.
Yeah. So, my whole thing though is like, if you're going to, I know it sounds weird to teachers, like, okay, we're going to write some social media posts in class. This can't be seen as like a one-off unit or project. I'm talking about building a consistent writing routine with teenagers, right? Or 6 to 12 is what I'm qualified to teach, right? So you have to look at it like, how can we get them to write because they want to, not because they have to? Because when I was teaching the formal essay, my students were writing because they had to for a grade. So how can we get them to write because they want to? We have to fire up that intrinsic motivation. So that means that we have to go beyond that content trap of trying to pour stuff in and look at what's already inside. What lights them up? What excites them? Digging into their passions, their talents, their interests, and then having them begin to write about that. If you think about it, every brand, business, niche online, they're promoting a message or a product or whatever it is, but there's a passion behind it. And that's why they want to put it out in the world, because it's something that could help other people. It's to serve, right? That's the purpose for writing, is to serve others. And so we want to get our students into that mindset and having them be able to also tap into who they are, who they're becoming. I think that we brush past that in the name of content and cognitive standards and rigor. So, if we can drive the standards and our students are free to choose some of the content that they write about, that could work very well where it's a win-win for everyone, right?
Right.
So what I did was I created essentially what's an editorial calendar. Like, this is something that you're not going to find that in a course book, right? But an editorial calendar is what people use in the real world to organize their writing. This is no different than brainstorming as a process in writing. And so I created like a calendar that just asks students all these different questions about a specific passion, talent, or interest that they identify for their writing. And then the different questions I ask range those standards. So it's questions that are going to spark kind of an argumentative standpoint, or to share a perspective, an opinion, or informational or narrative, because we don't even do that in high school these days.
We don't do it well.
And that's what all businesses run on, right? Yeah. They tell a story. Like, that's why we love products like Apple. We've all seen Simon Sinek's Start With Why, right?
Yeah.
So but it's just to start to get them to pin down their passions and interests so they can do some self-exploration. And then I'm on the sidelines as their guide, showing them how to kind of craft that micro content and how to kind of package it together in a theme for, let's say, an entire month's worth of writing, and then organize that to be shared with authentic audiences.
So what if I'm a teacher and I'm not really hip on social media? I don't know what's going on. I don't have a Twitter account. I look at Instagram. What do you say to those teachers who might be like, oh, I'm going to teach the long form?
Well, I definitely go through my fits and waves with social media. There are times where I'm like, I just need to stay away. And then there's times where, I'm getting into it because I understand the true value of it, right? But I think that if you're not a big fan of social media, I get that. And I want this to come lovingly as a coachable moment, but this isn't about us. This is
Right.
about our students, right? And just because we're intimidated by something, like, we can't be that gatekeeper of information and keeping that from them, because they deserve that. I don't know if we can use that word 21st century here, but to use that modern knowledge, like, we can't be the gatekeeper that just because we didn't grow up as a digitally native generation, that we can't let that be the excuse that, well, they're going to have to figure it out on their own, because it's communication. It's our job, especially if you're in ELA, speaking, listening, writing standards. It's all there on social media.
The power of words, and the power of words don't start and end in an essay, in a formal essay.
Yeah.
And like, this is why this is so incredible for me, Jill, because I did some of this. Like, my kids tweeted as we read The Outsiders. And when they did that, it was like the most amazing thing. And now instead, I would use something like Padlet to have them doing a back channel as we read, because they're engaged in the content. And someone walked in and said, but your kids are doing something else while you're reading. And I'm like, but you don't understand. They can't.
Yeah.
We're learning more about it because they're thinking about what part they're going to grab and tweet about. And it's very hard for people to wrap their heads around it. But I didn't do things like micro writing that was like focused. And I think that any English teacher out there who's not doing this is missing real 21st century teaching. And I don't know if we can use it either, because it's 2021. It's a little late for 21st century writing. But how do you see, like, how do people get started thinking and doing this?
Yeah, well, first it's that mindset shift, right? Because it's like, no employer ever is asking your students for their stack of high school essays as part of the job application process. So we have got to come to terms with that, number one.
Yeah.
But number two, making that shift, it's not going to happen overnight. It's something it's a scaffold, like any other, method of teaching. Like, there's a scaffold involved where we too have to get comfortable and create the kind of culture where this type of activity can thrive. And so, like you had mentioned, Padlet, that's one of my favorite places to begin the scaffold, because it's private to start, but you can slowly share that link. So your students are in there, and let's imagine that we set it up just like an Instagram, where kids will post a picture and then they have content that's relevant to that image. They could create a photo essay where it's a line of reasoning through a series of photos. And then below that, they're kind of slowly building their case about something they're interested in. So, it's like, if you've got a little girl who loves yoga, she's super into yoga, and like all her friends are like, oh, that's so woo woo. Like, here's 5 myths about doing yoga, and I'm going to bust them.
I love this.
And they're on the Padlet, and they're totally in control of the content. Because, like, if you have kids start a blog and you're like, okay, on your blog today, put your study guide answers, forget it. That blog is going to tank so fast. So they have to have that ownership, So I love Padlet. That's a great place to start, because kids can upvote, they can put the thumbs up, they interact just like they do with social. But it's the reflection piece as they're doing that that's crucial, because that's what builds your community and your culture for how this is supposed to go down. And it's asking them the beautiful question, what is this supposed to look like? What does it look like existing in the real world, where you have a bunch of adults like us on social media and we don't know how to use it? Let them figure out what's going wrong. And then they're building that culture empathetically in the safe space of your classroom. And then you might have that little girl who says, I love yoga. She decides, after she gets some posts out there, she's going to reach out to the local yoga joint and ask the owner, hey, would you take this link from my Padlet and give my post a look and comment on a few of them as a little bit of a mentorship even, and get that authentic feedback from someone other than your audience of one, right?
And you're saying this little girl with yoga, and all I can think about are all those boys who walked into my class every day talking about sports. And I was like, okay, great, shut it down. We're reading The Giver. And if I could have had them write something about, like they'd be obsessed with Tom Brady, I'm sure right now. Yeah. And 5 things that make Tom Brady so great after 40 or whatever. You know what I mean? Instead of, we're going to write an essay on animal rights, like every essay. You know what I'm saying?
100%. I like that you brought that up too, because I thought for the longest time that I was giving my students choice in what they write about by giving them a list of 10 prompts and being like, you can pick one.
Yeah.
That's not choice still. I mean, I'm not saying don't do that, because I would still totally be doing that in the classroom. I'm not knocking it. I am the kind of girl.
I would be like, where's your passion? But kids, by the time we get them at 7th, 8th, and 9th grade, no one's ever asked them about their passion, so that when you do, they go, I don't know what to write about.
Yeah. Or they get mad. They actually get mad. You either get that sea of blank stares, or you get the kids that are like, hold on, let me Google that real quick. Or you get kids that are like, who cares, miss? Like, can we just get it over with? Because they're so tired of not being asked that. Ed Hidalgo did a TEDx on this about how like some kids can go through their entire high school experience never being asked what their strengths or values are. And that, like, we preach student-centered all the time, but I mean, you could look at some of the reports from Gallup. I think their 2019 Creativity in Schools report, it said that only 11% of kids could actually say, I get to pick genuinely what I write about. And that's not student-centered, So we've got to reshape the way we understand some of these terms too.
Do you have something that helps people like get started with this?
I'm working on it right now. Oh my gosh. Do you mind? Okay.
No, my phone just went away. Go ahead. Okay, go ahead.
I have this little project in the making. It's a teacher resource kind of toolkit type of thing. It's a content calendar that helps students kind of dig into their passions, talents, and interests, and it kind of schedules that out so that they're creating this routine, right? And when you click on the calendar, these little task cards come up that give the students like a writing prompt, but again, it's about the thing that they've identified as their passion, talent, or interest. But instead of just giving that to teachers, I actually walk you through, I have like little micro videos, like 5 minutes each, but a few micro videos. There's 3 steps. Step 1, before you even do this, is you've got to figure out how to dig into student passions, talents, and interests, because as I said, they will say, I don't know. Yep. And so I have like some tactical strategies you can use to do that in your classroom. So
good. Keep going. Oh my gosh. I didn't know that you had
that's like step 1. And then step 2, I understand that, I'm not nose blind. I can smell the fear on teachers when we talk about exposing our students to authentic audiences. We often say, well, I can't because of my district standards, et cetera, or, policies that we have in place. For me, I'm like, forget I can't. These kids are in front of, authentic audiences on their own without us. So we need to adopt, how can I? So step 2 is all about scaffolding that process. We were talking about Padlet. So I really dig into all of that and just give teachers a safety net that like, we can do this, and you can go as far on that scaffold as you feel comfortable with your students. But I push teachers. I'm a pusher. No, I'm encouraging teachers to get to that point where they can genuinely release their students' work to the visibility of all. So going from audience of one to audience of anyone, but consistently over time.
I'm so freaking out. Keep going.
And then step 3, this is the last step, and this is as good as it gets. But step 3, it's like if your students finally crack that code where they start to look inside of themselves and feel comfortable with that, and they trust your classroom environment to do that, eventually it comes to a point where we've got to take our students beyond passion and pivot them toward purpose. So like if we look at Angela Duckworth's grit, the concept of grit, it's a mixture of passion and persistence that creates that grit to be successful in life. And grit is the number 1 characteristic beyond IQ that gets us to success, right? Tom Brady has grit. Yeah. So the third step is all about, what does that look like? How do we actually get our kids to take those passions? And there's 3 questions that we ask them to say, how can this make an impact on other people? So that third video walks you through that strategy so that you have a toolkit, genuinely a toolkit, and then you have the resources as well to make this a real experience in your classroom, whether you teach English language arts or math or, social studies or what have you.
Social studies for sure, because I taught language arts and social studies, and I can totally see like writing these micro things around people in certain situations in history. This is amazing, and I'm so thankful that you have something as a resource for teachers, because I always say this, like I tell teachers, and I just did it yesterday with some teachers in South Carolina, you don't have to know Canva. You have to know how to learn on Canva. You're the pedagogist. So like when teachers are doing this social media kind of writing in whatever class it is, it's not about understanding social media or the algorithms or all the stuff that people have to understand. It's about you teaching the learning, the writing, the words, the putting those together. And those kids know that. They'll figure it out if they're passionate enough about it.
Yeah. Yeah. And those platforms, it's not just about selfies and swagger. Those platforms, any business in the world right now, any organization, any company, any nonprofit, anybody that's serious about anything in this world that wants to make a difference is on social media doing the thing. Yeah. And there's a guarantee that plays a role in our students' world in the future, and again, well beyond, I believe in that both, and that you have to have the formal academic essay, because it does open that door if kids are going to college, but not everybody's going to college. So there's got to be room for both. Yeah. And that's something that, again, our students can be utilizing during college just as well as that academic essay.
And I know we're going over my time limit, but like you just said, utilizing during college. So like what I'm hearing is, if I'm in college and I need a side hustle today, I can be doing the restaurant social media. I actually have a friend in Oklahoma whose niece is doing just that. Because people think because you're young, social media, not necessarily, but she is doing a side hustle in Dallas for a restaurant because they saw what she was putting on her own social media, and she's not even in college yet. She's making money.
Yep. 100%. And it's strategic writing. It's not just social, like there's social media, like hashtag weekend vibes and hashtag messy hair don't care. That's social media, but there's social media writing for strategic purposes where there's an end goal, there's a call to action. And that's what kind of makes the online world go round. And our students deserve that knowledge and know-how more than knowledge. I always say, it's not just what your kids know, it's what they can do. But it's not just what your kids can do, it's what they can do for others that matters most in this world. And so that's kind of where this comes in. This is hands-on doing when they're working with these mediums.
So this is probably TMI, but there's this woman at Nordstroms who works in the shoe department. And she told me one day, she's like, I'm on Instagram. I'm like, great, I don't care, whatever. She's like, no, I mean, like I post Instagram shots when we get new shoes. So if you like them, you could just DM me and we can save you. And I was like, stop it. Now I'm like always looking at the thing to see if there's a new shoe that I want. And I know this is the TMI or whatever, but now I only go to her.
Yep.
I love this woman. I thought that was brilliant. I don't have to drive down to Nordstrom to see if they have the shoe I want. And I mean, it's probably bad for me because there's sometimes I see shoes I don't need that I buy, but it's that kind of like brilliance in a pandemic when people aren't wanting to go to the store. And like, this is the kind of pivoting we have to be able to give our students the skills to be able to do. And we're doing them an injustice, in my personal opinion, and it might not be yours, but doing them an injustice if we are not teaching them this style of writing.
I say it all the time. It's a disservice, to these kids if we gatekeep that kind of practical application of writing skill.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I worked with a teacher, and I know we got to stop, but I worked with a teacher in 8th grade a few years ago, and her claim to fame was her kids wrote 25 essays in that class.
I've been there. I failed forward on that. Yep.
And when scores came out, guess whose kids did better?
It is.
And I didn't do that. My kids did 4 essays because we spent time doing, purposeful writing, understanding the power of words. But anyway, so that goes it's not, she was one of those people who believed she was getting them ready for high school, because that's what we go through. 8th grade teachers think they're getting them ready for high school. High school teachers think they're getting them ready for college. And in college, it all ends.
Yes, right. There it
In
is.
fact, if you send an essay in an email to someone, they won't read it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, Dalton has one more comment. Like I said, Dalton's my favorite teacher. But Dalton said, yes, Holly, we're truly doing what's best for students if we're not preparing them for their own future. Exactly. So anyway, I know that you have a way to get some of this great stuff that you have been talking about. I just found out about it right before the show. I'm freaking out. I want to, right now I'm helping teach, not as much anymore, but language arts with the 8th grade. I want to go back in the classroom just to do this.
Yeah, right.
But let me get my thing up so I can put it up. So if you go here to jillpavage.com and /kickstart, what do you have there?
So what's happening right now, my team and I are in the midst of kind of topping off all the bells and whistles. We have our launch date for this is Monday, March 1st. So you're just in time. It's just a little time in between to get your hands on these resources. They're absolutely free, 0 barrier to entry. I want every teacher all over, being able to take this bold but necessary step in the classroom, right? So it's a totally free resource. It's super robust. So what you would do if you go to that link right now, you'll have a page to opt into it. You'll need to confirm your email with me. And on Monday, I'll send you all the things that you need. But in the meantime, because I know that kind of stinks, it's well, I don't want to wait. In the meantime, what I am going to do, you're going to get an email from me once you confirm that has a nice little free gift. It's my resource library of all kinds of goodies that you can pick and choose through, just to kind of hold you over until Monday, when I really drop the bomb on you with what we're calling the Writing Rebranded Kickstart Kit. It's to kickstart your rebrand of writing instruction in the classroom.
And what a perfect time to do it. We have tests coming up. It's ridiculous. We all know it's ridiculous. But after the test, when you feel like you have a little bit more flexibility, you can try this out, see the power of it. And it's such a perfect time for it. I hope I'm not killing my TikTok people. I keep moving my hand. Anyway, thank you so much. And I want to have you back on because I feel so this is everything to me, especially as a language arts teacher and history, to be honest. We have to do this different. This is the reason I keep on keeping on and why I get on planes and do all this stuff, because we have to do school different. We cannot get kids ready for 1985. And that's what we're doing right now. We're totally getting them ready for 1985. I still see people having kids turn stuff in MLA format. The MLA format was for when we printed, right? So that you would be able to find a paper because it would have the name on it. And
hyperlinks are the new works cited, right?
Anyway, I won't get into that because I know people who love their MLA, but 2021. Anyway, so thank you so much. Thank you. So enjoyable. And thanks. Bye, everyone.
Bye. Thank you, guys.
And I'm going to say bye to TikTok too.